Hello, and welcome to another episode of Undiscovered Beasts and Strange Phenomena. Please join our experienced and knowledgeable panel of hosts as we explore the great mysteries of our time: Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and unexplained phenomena.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our show. Tonight, Mike and I are joined by two excellent researchers. Both of us wanted to have them on the show. It's Montra and Kyle. Montra with us and Kyle Gibson. Good evening, lady and gentlemen, and welcome.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's our absolute pleasure. What I'd like to do this evening is explore a little bit about your backgrounds, first of all, because I'm very interested in those. I'm always interested in how people are motivated and get on the path that they're on. And also talk about some of your most recent research and the Bigfooting world generally. So, Montra, if we start with you, so you were originally a paranormal investigator, is that correct?
That's right. Yep.
And what made you? Have you got any particular moments in those investigations that stand out? Did you ever see a ghost or anything like that?
Well, I've been investigating reports of ghosts and haunted houses and things like that since I was able to drive a car, so from about 16 and a half on, so for a lot of years. And throughout the years, I've had some pretty interesting things happen. I haven't seen what I could say is a ghost, but I felt different things. I've had a lot of personal experiences. I've got a lot of electronic voice phenomena, but nothing that would be some sort of conclusive evidence, that's for sure. But it as with most people, and it's the same thing with Bigfooting too, is it seems like the more you do it and the longer you do it, the more questions you have. So it's just one of those things. But I've had some pretty cool experiences, so yeah.
Was there anything that really stands out in your mind where you thought, well, that was definitely a ghost or could have been a ghost?
There was one place that sticks out only because, well, a couple of reasons, but mainly because when I went there, I thought, this doesn't even feel creepy. Not that I'm not a sensitive or an empath or anything like that. But sometimes, you can walk in and you kind of feel like, oh, man, this just feels weird. There's just a weird kind of vibe to it. One of the places that I went, there was a guy who had bought a big building, and it used to be a funeral home with a crematorium. And he was changing it into a dry cleaners. So when he was gutting the place, he was just feeling really weird, like he was being watched and having a lot of weird feelings. And so he'd asked that we come by and just kind of check it out and stay the night there if we wanted to. And it was all boarded up because he was just gutting the inside, and he'd boarded up all the windows and such. And anyway, went in, and like I said, and then he left. He didn't want to stay. So, and this was at night. It was pretty late, and just kind of thought, it's just a kind of a big empty building. It's stripped down to the bare bones, a cement floor. The walls had been stripped down to the drywall. So I was there for a while, and I thought, I'm not going to stay the night. This just is going to be kind of a waste of time. Started recording and setting up some of the equipment, and it was really strange because with electronic voice phenomena, you don't usually hear things in real time. You hear things when you play back the audio. And so even while I was there, I didn't realize what was actually being recorded until the drive home, and I was listening to some of the things that I picked up. And there were just a couple things that happened while I was there that were weird. One was when I was walking around, I smelled roses, which was strange because there was nothing there, no carpeting, nothing old. They would have retained that sort of a smell. But anyway, so once I was reviewing the audio tapes, there were voices in the background that were not there. So it was just myself and one other person, and there was an old lady who was answering things that I was just kind of saying, not asking questions, but like I was fiddling around with one of the instruments that I had, and I was getting frustrated because it wasn't working right. And I had said, there's just so many stations on this thing. And this old lady's voice that sounds like she's right behind me, she says, "Oh, no, there's not."
Oh, no.
Yeah. Just weird stuff like that. And so then, and the person I was with was male, so it's not even like there was, another female with me. And so then there was another voice that was probably one of the creepiest EVPs I've ever got, and it was a man's voice. And it was just kind of a random thing on the tape. It wasn't an answer to any, it wasn't a response to any question or anything. And it was sounded like an elderly gentleman, and he said, "Take me home right now."
Oh, no. And you didn't know Kyle at that. You didn't know Kyle at that stage, so it couldn't have been him.
No.
Nope, wasn't me. I wasn't even a gleam yet.
No, he said that at a later date.
No,
I wasn't even a gleam in her eyes yet.
I'm just teasing, I couldn't help it. The internet just got the better on me. No,
but
Kyle,
yeah,
I
so
owe
there
you
were
a beer for that one, man. I owe you a beer. I couldn't help it.
So anyway, there's.
Yeah, that's very, very strange. That's very, very strange. So did you feel anything when you were in that area? Were you like no?
No, I wasn't creeped out. I didn't feel anything weird. In fact, it felt like, there's just nothing here at all. In fact, I thought it was going to be pretty much, there was going to be nothing on the tapes. I didn't think anything was there, and I was totally shocked at all the evidence that was recorded. It was just, and also one other thing, which is actually really rare in ghost hunting, is you rarely ever get an animal on tape. So when I was there, there was a big dog barking, and it sounded like it was right there in the room. Now, this is a big, gigantic, empty building with the windows and doors boarded up except for one door, and there's no animals outside. There wasn't anything. It sounded like a big dog. Just very strange. That was probably one of the weirdest places I think I've ever been. So.
Do you still do it now, or is it mainly cryptozoology research for you now?
I still do both. If we are tied down and we can't get away and go bigfooting, which is our first priority, then we'll do something more local and maybe do some ghost hunting out here. And Kyle is very interested in the UFO phenomena, so we've been kind of doing that a little bit on the side too, and which is really fun. But yeah, so I still do it. I really enjoy it. I started a group here in Washington called Tri-Cities Paranormal that's out on Meetup. And we have over 100 members, which is really cool. So a lot of people interested in the paranormal up here.
So do you believe, I'm just generally asking questions because we'll come on to the UFO stuff and then we'll focus in on the cryptozoology research.
Sure.
Do you believe that some people have abilities? What I'm asking really is about these people who claim they're clairaudience so they can hear things, or clairsentient so they can see things. Do you believe in that, Montra?
I think there are people that are talented with those things. I don't understand it myself because I don't have it. But I think that there are a lot of people that may claim that they have it that don't, for whatever reason. But I think that there truly are people that are that have these special talents. There's just a handful, but there are some. There's one woman who, she's wonderful. Her name is Debbie Sennett, and she's married to Richard Sennett. They live down in California, and they do a lot of ghost hunts, and he's been on different shows and things. He's a wonderful guy. He's an author, historian and such. But his wife, I've been at a couple seances that she's performed, and as well as some other things, some events that she's had, and she's awesome. She tunes right into things that there's no way she would know. And her stuff can be validated, so it's really cool. So there are people like that. We've had, in fact, on the show that Jackie and I do together, Paranormal Journeys, we've had people on there too. That Jackie Harris, she's really talented. So I do think there are people that really do have that other sense. I wish I did. It would sure help me out a lot, but I don't.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it would be good. So what do you think? The other side is? Then, Montra, do you think there's a heaven, a hell? Where are these things coming from? I
don't know. I wish I knew, Adam. I really, my I just don't know, because right when you think you kind of are just on the cusp of figuring out, oh my gosh, this is really a person, a departed spirit that I'm talking to, then you get nothing. They're gone, or whatever it was is gone. So I don't know. I don't know if they're spirits of people, if they're something pretending to be a person, if there's something you're projecting out of your own subconscious. I don't know. I really don't. It seems though that I do feel in my own sense that there are things, I don't know what they are, that interact and are able to correspond with you and not correspond like on paper, but I mean as far as talk to you and answer questions and things that are relevant. So I don't know what they are though. There is some sort of consciousness, whether it's a departed spirit, like I said, or something on a different level of some kind of dimension. I don't know. I just know that there definitely are things out there.
It's interesting, really. You've hit on a point that a lot of skeptics would postulate, which is when you try to measure this sort of research, this psychic research, it's difficult to quantify, and it's difficult to quantify and get experiments replicated because they produce such erratic results.
Exactly.
So you can't replicate and get the same thing, and that's been the problem, I think, with any of this vindication for paranormal mysteries, is you can't do it. You know, a ghost, if we say whatever this thing may be there one day, but it's not going to be there on Tuesday at 7 p.m. to replicate the same experiment. Interesting.
Exactly. Yeah, even a place like Skinwalker Ranch, I'm sure you're familiar with that. You know, they can't replicate the same things, and they just have continued bizarre, unexplainable activity. It's just craziness. So, there's nothing you can really say is hard evidence.
No, good. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, one of the things I didn't know about, I knew you were into the paranormal field, but I didn't know that you were involved in UFOs. I mean, either of you, both of you, tell us what your interest is and what you do in relation to UFO research.
Well, I'm just kind of on the cusp on it. I'd always kind of had a distant interest in it, but Kyle, that's kind of his second love with Bigfooting. So with me, it's paranormal. Ghost hunting with him, it's UFO. So I'm gonna hand the phone to him. He's right here too. So.
Okay.
Well, how I got into it is my family worked for the government from the very beginning before they built the first atomic bomb here in the Tri-Cities, and my grandma and grandpa both worked out in the Hanford area, and they're both and so they were part of that from the very beginning. And through my grandparents and through family that worked out there, I heard a lot of stories, and I seen a lot of things. I mean, we lived basically right across the street from the Yakima River, and the area was only a few miles down the road till you hit the Hanford area, the nuclear site. And growing up, you know, we spent all our time, you know, basically playing on the river because it was basically in our backyard. So, I mean, we grew up on the Yakima River, and, you know, my family are all outdoorsmen. I mean, we all fished and hunted from just by the time we could walk, we were fishing and hunting.
I understand. Let me just sort of get up, because that intrigued me. A number of things there that intrigued me. So first of all, when you say your family worked for the government, what did they do, Kyle?
My grandpa helped build the first the nuclear bomb.
Really?
Yeah, my grandpa was. Yeah, yep.
What capacity? Tell me. I'm fascinated by that. Tell me.
Well, he worked out at what they call 100 in. He was working with the plutonium, and he was a power operator out there. And then basically all of my family worked out there. They all had Q clearances for the government, secret clearances. And then I was actually raised by my grandparents, so I was around that a lot. You know, we had I always tell the stories about, you know, my grandfather. He always had a metal box that he brought home with him every day, and it had the dosimeter in it to see how much radiation levels that they had. And basically, we had the men in black come to our house every few months And when I was just a little kid, they'd make everybody leave the room when these guys would show up. Pretty interesting stuff.
What was their purpose? What were these guys do? Did you see them, Kyle? And what did they look like? These people.
These people were dressed up just like real sharp black suits, white shirts, black suits, shiny shoes, very pale, no hair, very odd looking people.
And what did
they would come.
Why did they come and see your grandparents? What did they say?
They just told us that was for that they worked out for the area, and they would come to check to grab the box to check things, and then they're almost like just debriefing them, I guess. But my grandmother, she never told us a whole lot of what they would talk about or anything. It just every so often they would come to the house, and they just we're just little kids. And they were just like, you got to go out in the back and wait until we tell you to come in. After they got done talking.
Yeah, and I mean, when you said you heard stories, did you hear stories from them about aliens or anything like that?
Yes. My mother was married to her husband Charles, which was my stepfather. His mother worked out there in an airplane tower, and all the military airplanes would come in out there on the This was way back, a long time ago. Anyway, she worked in an airplane tower, and they had metal curtains. And I was at a birthday party for a relative or something, and I was sitting there next to her, and I was this lady, she's one of those ladies. She just was so straight and honest, and we'd known her for a long time. But I was just sitting there, and I was asking her questions, and she told me, she kind of pulled me aside one day. She's like, you know what I saw when I was out there? And I go, what? And she told me she worked in the airplane tower. And that we had UFOs coming out there to Rattlesnake Mountain, and they had special metal curtains on the towers. And when the UFOs came, these bright red lights would come up, and they would shut the metal curtains so the radiation couldn't get through these special metal curtains. And she was telling me about this.
So the UFOs are radioactive, basically.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's why.
Go on. Just carry on. You carry on talking, Carl.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah, and that's why they're so interested in our. Once we started developing those bombs and all that energy, they started coming to us because they're trying to figure out, well, what are these guys up to, And pretty interesting.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking out loud now, but obviously both you and I and Montra were all at the IBC in September last year, and Travis Walton was there. He's famous for the Fire in the Sky incident, and he was telling me, I was having lunch with him, and he was talking about how there was radiation left behind after his encounter, and you could see it there. So that's interesting. Now when you spoke to your grandparents, did they ever say anything about aliens or what type of aliens might be around? Did they ever tell you anything about that?
No, they didn't. They kept everything pretty secret. I think they had to back then because of, national security and stuff. Basically my grandfather they would come and pick him up at the corner in a special bus, and they would haul him out there. And then after he got done work, they would haul him back in a bus. And
Did he ever say to you that aliens existed, though? Did you ever have any conversations with either of them about aliens or UFOs that you can recall? Yes. We were sitting on the porch one time, and he did tell me about that he knew that they were there, that they're here, And he was always very fascinated. My grandfather, he was one of those guys, he loved National Geography Channel, and he loved history. And he was a real, like I said, he was a real outdoorsman. If he wasn't working, he would be either building something in the garage or he would be hunting or fishing. So that's very cool. So what did he say? Can you remember it? I'm pressing you on it because I'm fascinated, Carl. So take it as a compliment. Did he say anything? What can you recall he said? I just remember me and him talking about it, and talking about how he's kind of fascinated with it, and
he's just kind of like, well, you know, they come out there, you know, and they're very interested in our technology, and just stuff like that, you know. It wouldn't be like direct. He wouldn't give me too much information, you know, but he'd just give me enough information that I would know, well, hey, he does know something, but, you know.
Yeah. And what was your grandfather's name? Just so we know.
His name was Don Workman.
Don Workman. Very cool.
Yep, Workman. Yep.
Oh,
Don Workman. Yep.
So, in terms of your own research, is there anything that you've encountered that you want to share with us that about the research? Is there a lot of information in your area?
Well, yeah, there's just been, like Montra is saying, you know, it seems like the more that you think you know, all of a sudden you think you got it kind of figured out a little bit, and then all of a sudden it just kind of falls apart on you.
Yeah, something happens. It just blows everything out of the water, and you're left standing there like, what the heck was that?
When you think you're getting close and you think you got the answers, you better just be patient.
Be prepared to feel really stupid soon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I must say, you know, if my grandfather had been involved in making the atomic bomb, and he told me that aliens existed and they were interested in our technology, I'd be bound to research it too, Kyle. It's an amazing piece of information. So thank you for that. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about the alien research before we move on that I may have missed before we move on to the cryptozoology stuff?
No. You know, there could be a link between. You remember Ray Crow, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, you remember his track record. He talked about how at certain times that those lights would show up, and then, and in those same areas that those lights show up, that there'd be Bigfoot encounters and stuff like that. A lot of these experiences that I've had through the years, some of them just don't add up to be something that's just, there's just a lot of questions, you know.
So we'll come on to those questions now. So we'll focus a little bit. I mean, obviously we could talk to you for many hours, but I'm conscious we've only got an hour with both of you. So we'll come on to your cryptozoological research. So I know you, Kyle, have been doing it for many years, because I spoke to you years ago about cryptozoology. So, what you research a particular area, and you've got this area, Columbia, Sasquatch, and you have lots of things on there for people to see. The question I had when I was looking at your information, and I've heard you talk and everything, is how do you decide, both of you, what a good area is to research?
Well, I've done a lot of history. I mean, I've just done a lot of history, and throughout all the years, all my hunting trips and stuff, and all my time outdoors and stuff, I've been out in places. I mean, I've been all over, but I've been out in places where I've seen, you know, footprints, I've heard things, and I've actually seen things. And
what's good too is out here, Kyle's grown up out here. He's been here his whole life, so everybody knows him. I mean, he's a really nice guy, and people know him out here, and they know that he's kind of the Bigfoot go-to guy as well. So whenever there's reports or anything like that, a lot of people they contact him, and then we'll go out and we'll check stuff out, and so it's made a lot easier because he has such a good rapport with folks out here in the area too, and he's been, you know, a long-standing person here in the community. So so that makes it quite a bit better for us as far as accessibility and finding people that have had incidents happen and that kind of thing. So.
Yeah, that's a good point, Montra. So we should say that because Kyle can't say it, 'cause he's obviously a modest chap, but Kyle's a respected businessman in his local community. That's right, isn't it?
Right, definitely.
Yeah. And Kyle, you do landscaping and other things. What's your business?
I build I do a lot of construction. I build swimming pools. I do a lot of concrete work. I do masonry work. I do stone work. I'm pretty much an artist. I mean, I can go and build amazing rock walls, and I've been able to do it ever since I was a little kid. For some reason, I was just one of those kids where I just got into that, and I just found love for rock, and I love to build things with stone.
And when he says rock, he means boulders like taller than I am. I mean, he builds these walls that are just amazing. I've never seen anything like it. He is very modest, like you said, Adam, and he builds, very, very high tech, very cool, awesome swimming pools and things for people that are willing to invest a lot of money in their backyards and such. So I mean, there's a lot of neat things that he does out here, and he's got his signature all over the place. When you just even drive around, and you can recognize his work too, because you'll see walls and you'll be like, I can tell he built that because it's a certain look to it, So
yeah, and the reason I mentioned that is because obviously, if you have you been doing that for many years, so you've built up trust in the community. I would imagine. Is that right?
Right.
Yes.
Mhm.
So, were you doing Bigfoot research since you were a little boy, Kyle? I mean, how did you start doing it?
Well, how it started is, like I said, I grew up along the Yakima River over here, and when I was a very young kid, I had a sighting, and at first I was like, I really don't know. When you see something like that's not supposed to be there, in your mind, you start trying to find excuses, or you try to figure out, well, could that have been this, or could that have been that, And for what I saw, it really blew me away. And after that, I went to the local library to find a book because of what I saw. I mean, I was just that interested. I was just like, after you see one, it just totally grabs you, and you're just like, you want to know more, and you want to know why, and you want to know what they are, and because everybody else says that they don't exist. So once you see one, that changes your life.
And you've seen one, have you, Kyle?
Yes.
Do you want to describe what happened? Because that would be very interesting for people, I think.
Well, when I was a kid, I was down. I used to fish. I mean, when I was a kid, during the summertime, I'd go down on the Yakima River. I'd fish. I know every inch of that river. I could wade all the way across it because I knew how deep it was. I knew where all the crawfish were. I knew where the fish would migrate up and down the river from the mouth of the Columbia into the Yakima River. And growing up down there, we had a couple neighborhood friends that we grew up with kids, and so that all those miles of river down there were our playground. And we spent a lot. I mean, if we'd go home, cross the freeway, have a sandwich and some chips for lunch, and then we'd be back on the river until it got dark. And then we'd go, and even at dark times, sometimes we'd go catfishing or we'd go catch crawdads. But we spent a lot of time on the river, and that's how it all started for me. Because after seeing those, I saw two of them at the same time.
What did they look like? Describe them to us, if you will, please.
You know how everybody says that, like the Patty film and everything, big and large? These were not. These were more thin and skinny. They were built like an NBA basketball player. One was very tall. One was probably thinking around 7 foot or so. And the other one was a little bit shorter than that one, maybe about probably a foot shorter. But what was really weird is, I shine the light on them, and they, how like if you shine a light on an animal, a lot of times animals will freeze up, like when we used to hunt rabbits when we were kids and stuff, or an animal will freak out because of the light, and they'll jump and they'll take off running. These two things that walked in front of me, they walked like I wasn't even, they knew I was there and I shined the light on them. They didn't jump, they didn't move, they just walked very casually across the road, and they were gone into the trees, and that was it.
Did you see their faces? What details can you tell about?
Their hair. So what I really remember, because I was pretty young, but what I really remember is when the arm came up and the light hit the arm, you could see the hair. The hair was probably about 5 inches long, and it kind of whispered. Like, so when he lifted his arm up and my lights hit him, or hit it, whatever it was, the hair kind of moved like wind would hit the hair, so it kind of was thin, but it moved. I'll never forget that. I mean, that was unbelievable. And I could see his head and everything. I couldn't see, because it was dark outside, I couldn't see the face. I wasn't close enough to see the face. I could kind of make out a little bit, but it was still quite a ways away. But I remember the hair, the head being kind of cone-shaped a little bit towards the top. But I remember the hair coming down and kind of like, when it went, no neck on it, but once the hair came off the head, it kind of just did a little, kind of like a little whoop on the shoulder.
Like a little curl up?
A little curl up on the shoulder.
Like a little Mary Tyler Moore kind of thing.
And then, but I'll never forget, the hair was really long. In the dark, you can't really tell. If my hot lights was hitting it, if I would guess at it, it was either a dark brown or a black hair.
And how old were you when this encounter happened, Carl? Can you remember?
I can't. It was when I was really. I can't even. You know what? I'd hate to say it because I'd probably be wrong. It was a long time ago. I was just a kid.
No,
yeah.
It's fine. Were you under 10, or were you between 5 and 10, roughly speaking? What age?
No, I was older than that. I was older. I had to be at least 11 or more.
So you were between 11 to 15. Would that be a reasonable guess?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So because that's important. You see, I think you start. This is a very generalist view, but when you get to 11, you start to develop independent sentience without imagination much more clearly than you do when you're a little child, when imagination can really play a big part in your life.
Right.
So if you're starting to be a pre-teen or teen around there, it's much less likely to be fantastical conjuring, for want of a better word. Are you with me? Do you see where I'm going with it? That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep, definitely. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
After hunting, I've been in the mountains and I've spent much time in the mountains, and I've hunted everything. I know what all the animal sounds are, and I know their footprints, and I know how to track them, and I know, how to wait for them. I know when they come for the water, what times they come to drink water, and I know migration patterns. I know all, what animals do, what time of year they move around, and where they go. There's a lot to know, but when I saw that, it just kind of like was really odd. It was just, at first I was thinking to myself, well, could that have been some people or something? But why are they all hairy, and why is one really tall? But in your mind, you're just like, well, could that have been people or something? But it couldn't have been. So.
No, that's interesting. So you had that encounter, and obviously that had an effect on you. I know you've got some photographs which we'll come on to later on, which I thought were very interesting. Have you had other sightings, either of you, of a Bigfoot type creature since then?
I had the most incredible experience, but I wish it would have never happened. I had something happen.
You've got to tell us about it, Kyle. You've got to tell us about it. Sorry.
Well, I had this. Okay, so you ever read Ed Fuchs' papers on Bigfoot? Have you ever read Ed Fuchs' paper about the area of the Colville, on the Colville Reservation over between northeastern Washington, Spokane, and Keller, Washington?
It doesn't ring a bell. I don't think I have, no.
Okay. Anyway, if you ever get a chance to read that, this is the area that they did a big study in. But quite a few years ago, when I first went up to the lake, I went up there and I knew of all this stuff that I read about, and I was just like, I'm, searching everything. Well, why not go to a place that has a lot of history? And so I went up there about 10 years ago, and I'd read about all the history and everything, and I thought, in my mind, I'm always thinking, okay, if you're one of these creatures and you're trying to stay away from people, where will you go? And you need a lot of room, and you need a lot of places. You need a lot of food. You need shelter. You need water, all that stuff. I thought, after reading all that, I was just like, I got to go check this out. So I went up there, and I did a bunch of studying, and I went up there one weekend with my camper, and I just fell in love with the area. It's just beautiful. 150 miles of water of the Columbia River. It goes all the way to the Canadian border. Mountains with granite, steep, rocky mountains, caves everywhere, thick trees, lots of fish, lots of bighorn sheep, lots of every kind of animal you can name. I mean, it's all there. Those mountains, some of those mountains, I mean, they got peninsulas around them, so there's a lot of water that goes around both sides of them, and there's some places where there's no roads. There's places that you can only get there by boat. You can't even get there. There's no roads or nothing. The only way you can get there is by boat. Anyway, so I went up there and started doing my searching. You know, I was up there, like I said, 10 years ago. Started searching, and then I would always talk to some of the locals. And when I take my boat down to the marina at the Indian reservation, the lady there, little lady named Connie, she'd always pull my boat in for me, and she'd fill up my tank, and I talked to her about, you know, things, and I'd ask her stuff like, well, have you ever seen anything kind of odd up here? And, you know, and I'd just bring up, you know, hey, you heard of Bigfoot? And, you know, and it's so interesting to the Native Americans, you know, with us being such a big deal to us, to them, you mention that, and it's not really that big of a deal to them. They'll be like, oh, yeah, my uncle saw it, you know, or, oh, my aunt saw it, you know. It's not as big a deal to them. It's like, you know, like seeing a wolf or a bear. So through the years, I made friends up there, and I would talk to them, you know, and ask them, well, hey, where did you have this happen at? And I'd study I'd even study the BFRO websites. There's a lot of information out there you can go out there and get about other people that have had sightings in those areas. And I just kept looking and looking and looking. And finally, I kind of like talked to some elders from the reservation, and they kind of told me an area. They said, that area that you're spending time in, that area is a very sacred area to us. And they basically told me, that's a kind of a dangerous area. They live there, and you shouldn't go there. Well, when somebody tells you that you shouldn't go there, to me that's like, you know, you spend your whole life looking for something.
I'm on the way. And I'll be like straight there as soon as you said it.
Yeah, I'll be like, at the same time, I'm trying to be very respectful, and I'm like, sure, I'll stay out of there. Yeah, I won't go there.
Yeah,
you know?
But it's like, whatever you do, don't look to your left. What's the first thing you do? Look to your left.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. So I went up there, and this just didn't happen right away. I mean, this was weeks, but I had this really fancy boat, and it had these huge speakers on a tower, you know. And so I go behind this peninsula, behind these big giant rock cliffs, back behind there, because I'd seen some tracks when I've hiked up there before, and I kind of knew that, hey, this is the time that they'd be in this area because there's nobody around, and you know, it's kind of up there on the river. It's during the summertime. There's a lot of people that do camping and do stuff, but after that season's over, it's bare. There's nobody up there the rest of the year. I mean, there's nothing. It's just bare. I mean, there's a couple fishermen. That's about it.
And there's very few shore areas too. So most of it is just rocky cliffs and water. So there's very few places where if you do pull your boat up, it's sandy for just maybe like 30 feet.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's not like you can have a bunch of campers there or anything like that. It's like, you could probably go there with your kids, lay out in the sun for a little bit, and then go home. But so these areas again, they're really pretty isolated. So
yeah, and it's really. But anyway, so I got an idea because I kept watching. Well, I kept seeing these people on the TV and stuff doing call blasting, and I was like, you know, I've never done that, you know. So I thought to myself, I had Ron Moorhead CD in my boat. Yeah. So I decided, I said, well, I'm going to blast this thing up that mountain and see what it does. So I put it in there, and about the first 2 or 3 weeks, I'd play it until I got sick of it, you know, all that blah 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 and all that noise, you know, and everything chattering. Then I was like, I'm changing it to 80s music, you know.
Did you put your favorite Britney Spears track on instead, then, Kyle?
Yeah.
Do what now? What was that?
Did you put your favorite Britney Spears track on instead of Ron Moorhead?
No, I didn't put her on, but I put some good '80s music on there anyway. So I just kept trying. I just kept trying it, thinking maybe one time, maybe something would happen or something. You never know. And so, like I said, after about 3 weeks or whatever, I went out there again, just thinking like I'm gonna play it for a little bit, see what happens. So I played it, and up on top of the hill, I heard a response, and it was very, very loud.
And what was
it? It was just when I was playing Ron's CD, and it's doing all those noises and everything. I heard this big, loud yell.
A yell.
And it was a powerful kind of a yell scream. I always kind of tell people it's kind of like putting an elephant, a pack of wolves, and a bear and something else, but the volume of this sound was something like I'd never ever heard before. I'm talking unbelievable. And it echoed off the walls. I mean, it was so loud. But then what's even crazier is after that went like that, I heard full-grown trees getting plumbed over, like something was just plowing. Something was very mad, and it was coming down the mountain.
Nah, coming down the mountain for you, thinking what's going on.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yep. So anyway, I decided, well, I'm so excited, I've never done that, and I was like, this is my chance, gosh, I got something come down the mountain, now I got it. So I jumped off my boat, I anchored my boat out there, and I jumped in the water with my shoes over my head, and I swam to shore, and I put my shoes on, and I decided I'm going to try to sneak up on this thing. And it kept coming down the mountain and was making more noise and more noise. And so I started there's this huge, huge rock. I mean, giant, massive piece of granite. And I started trying to go around the back of that granite. Well, this thing, let's put it this way. I took one of my buddies up there, military buddy, and it took us all day just to go up the top of that mountain. It took us all day to climb that mountain. This thing came down this thing came all the way down in a matter of minutes. And it took me and my military buddy all day to get up to that same point where those caves were. And this thing came down fast, and so I thought to myself, well, I'm going to find out what this is,
Did you see it, Kyle?
Yes, I did see it. And it jumped out at me, and it yelled at me, and I turned around, and I tried to run for the water, and I couldn't move a muscle. I couldn't move.
You were frozen?
I froze up. I was frozen, and it was the scariest thing I've ever had happen to me. I thought I was done.
Were you frozen through something that, I'm asking you to speculate now, and forgive me. Were you frozen, do you think, through fear, which would be understandable, or was it some sort of infrasound thing? Do you feel you were frozen?
Well, let's put it this way. I'm a professional fighter, and I've done cage fighting, and I've done MMA. I've done boxing. My parents put me in martial arts when I walk. I'm not afraid of anything, but this thing, it put something. I couldn't understand why I couldn't move. Let's put it this way. When that sound hit me. It shook the inside of my stomach. It shook. An energy field had like I'd taken my hand and I grabbed the electric fence, like with you and your kids, and you're not smart enough to know what electrical fence is, and you grab a fence and it does that. It did that. I mean, I couldn't move. I wanted to get in that water and get out of there, and I couldn't do it.
And what did it look like? Can you remember?
Oh yeah, I can remember. It was very dark. It was black, pretty much black. It was very tall, and this one wasn't skinny like those ones I saw when I was younger. This was a really big, whatever it was. I don't know how people tell between a male and a female when you see something like that, and you want to get away from that you're not going to sit there and analyze and speculate and look at what it is. And it was a fight or flight. It was, okay, now what are you going to do? Is this thing going to pull me to pieces or what?
Yeah.
Is this it? Is this the last? Is this it? You know, in my mind, I got.
Yeah.
It was like I told people, it's the most awful feeling that you could ever have, because I had no gun, I had nothing. You know.
Yeah. I mean, what did it? Did you remember seeing its face? Did you ever see its face, Kyle?
Yes, I did see its face, and what I saw was the face almost looked. It wasn't like a gorilla, but it was. You know how people describe it as a gorilla? It was human. It was human-like. It was very human-like. It had a very wide, flat nose, really deep eye ridges. The skin was kind of dark skin, you know. There's nothing like I'd ever seen before. It was really, really scary. I mean, it was, you know, I don't know what to compare it to. I mean, it wasn't a human and it wasn't a gorilla. So.
And how far away were you from it when you got this look at it?
What? Probably like
30 feet or so?
No, it's probably like 50 feet. About 50 feet.
50 feet. And you were frozen for. I mean, it's difficult to say exactly, and I'm not holding you specifics. This isn't.
Yeah.
How long do you think you were frozen like that for?
Probably a minute and a half to 2 minutes longest, but it felt like.
So quite a long time you were frozen. And what happened next? How did you get out of the situation? Obviously, you're still here, so it didn't attack you. So what happened next?
So what happened? So I'm turned around and I'm, you know, like in the stance that you're going to sprint, right? So I'm in a sprinting stance, but I can't move anything. I mean, I can't move a muscle. I can't move at all. And I want to go for that water, but I can't. But so I hear this thing behind me, right? And I hear this real heavy breathing, like almost like guttural, like something's having a hard time breathing. I mean, it's really weird. I never heard anything like that before. And it was just kind of like behind me and didn't get real. I mean, it was close enough, but I couldn't see it because I'm pointed towards the lake and I want to get in the lake and I can't move, but I could hear it behind me. I could hear it behind me. All of a sudden, after about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, all of a sudden my body all of a sudden just let loose. And I hit that water, and I literally looked like I was Jesus walking across the water. I mean, you ain't never seen anybody swim that fast. Trust me.
Sure, man. Yeah.
And then,
so you still go up there? Do you still go up there, Kyle? You still go to this area?
Yes, I do. Yes, I was just up there about a week ago.
And why? Why did you go? Why? What? And Montra goes. No, I'm sure both of you go. Bearing in mind, I'm interested in this, and this is a fact. Bearing in mind what happened to you, so obviously that was a very unpleasant episode. Why did you still go?
Because I still got to know. I'm so interested. I want to learn. You know, I want to. You know, I'm very careful now. Now I carry a gun most of the time with me, and then I don't go by myself anymore. I like to take people with me after that experience. But I'm still, you know, I think a lot about, you know, how I did that. And you got to think about when you start blasting something, you don't know what something's saying. You know, you thought about maybe that thing was, maybe what was being said wasn't very, you know, wasn't making that thing very happy or whatever. But I still got to, you know, even to this day, is being that scared of it, you know, I still got to learn. I still got to know. There's so much more, you know, that I want to learn.
Well, what he's not mentioning too is he was sick for 3 days after that, like sick.
Yeah, I felt like I had like a serious flu. I mean, I went back to my camper. I laid on the couch for like 3 days with like a flu-like symptom. My insides felt like somebody beat me.
Yeah, physically affected. Sounds like some sort of infrasound incident. No, I mean, it sounds like, Mike was just messaging me. Sounds like a side effect for infrasound, and I'd agree with him. Exactly the same thing. Well, when question for you. So Montra, do you go to this area with Kyle now? This same area?
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah, we were just up there. Yeah, we were just up there about 2 weeks ago.
So who's the fastest runner, you or Kyle?
Well, see, that's probably why he takes me, because he knows I'm a lot slower than him. I'm surprised he hasn't got me a shirt that says bait on the back.
Hey, remember that joke, Adam? All you gotta, when those guys are bear hunting, all you gotta say is, all I gotta do is outrun you.
Yeah, well, that's it, you see. Montra, and I don't want to say anything, but, he used to go on his own, but now he takes you.
Yeah, gee. Yeah, boy, do I feel special. What a lucky girl, huh?
Yeah, I've been working out if I was you. I'd be ready to out sprint him. No. I mean, joking aside, I mean, do you? What interests me is because you have, I mean, of all the researchers who are out there at the moment, you have a lot of evidence, which is interesting. Yeah, I get sent a lot of blurry bushes and mud prints of dubious stuff. Some good stuff, but most of the stuff I get is not of a very good quality. But you have got some interesting stuff, and you also have some good encounters. I mean, what's your objective with your site? You say you want to know. I mean, what are you trying to prove it to yourself? Prove it to science? Proves maybe the wrong word. Gather scientific evidence. When I was researching you the other day, I had a big question mark in. What are your objectives? That's what I'm really interested in.
Well, I think for us, it's kind of a potpourri. We want to gather as much evidence as we can to share with other researchers because it helps so much when you compare notes with people that actually do go out in the field. And on another level, we want to prove it to ourselves. Even though him and I have both had sightings, I had one when I was a kid, and we want to see it again. We want to have some more visual evidence. I mean, we've got audio evidence now too that's really interesting. We haven't posted a lot of our stuff on the Columbia Sasquatch page because you get so many people that just have never been out in the field that want to critique everything you do. So we're kind of being more selective of what we put out there. But I think for us it's just a couple different levels. We don't want to bring back a body. That's not our point. But we do want to, we
want to prove it.
We do want. It would be great to be able to provide some sort of hard evidence if we could. I mean, it's probably going to take somebody's grandma to hit one on the freeway to have a body. So. Yeah,
and I don't necessarily think you need a body. I mean, I've worked with genetic researchers in the past, and if you got some decent hair samples, and we can talk about this again, that would be enough to shift the parameters, and I'm fairly convinced of that. It's not, this show isn't about me, but when next time we talk, I can tell you more details about why that's important and what would happen. So you could get samples. You don't have to have the body these days. That might have been the case in the 70s and 80s even, but it's not now. I mean, so you're moving some points. Do you feel positive about your area? Is it an area that do you feel like you could finally answer some of these questions that we're all asking?
Yeah.
I think so. I mean, I am from California, so I'm up here permanently now in Washington, and the Bigfooting research areas up here are different. There's a whole different feel to them, and up here it's a lot. There's so much more available evidence. I mean, that's the only way I can put it, really, because the areas up here have historically, I mean, just amazing amounts of stories that come out of some of these areas, especially since there's a lot of the reservations up here. They've just got, they're steeped in history with Bigfoot intertwined and all kinds of things. So it's a really very thick, as far as Bigfooting stuff goes, area up here.
We've made some really incredible contacts too of some of the people that actually live in these areas. Some of them are in their 80s, and they've had many sightings in these areas. We have an area up in the Blue Mountains, up kind of like where Paul Freeman took the Freeman footage. There is a long history, and I've talked to I met a guy that he's retired from the game department, and he lives up there on those roads. And I talk to him every week, but he tells me when the tracks show up, when one of the neighbors see one. They see them quite often, and these people are not in it for anything. They're just people that live out on the edge, in the mountains, and these things come along, and they're really interested too, and so they just want to share their experience, and so they, we've made some really good connections. In the next couple weeks, we're planning on. We have a good friend that's a Native American that his family and his friends on the reservation have had many sightings, and he's actually going to take us to the reservation on the Colville Reservation, and he's going to let us interview some of his friends and family, and we're going to actually go to the sites where they had their sightings, and it's going to be awesome.
So what do you? We haven't got that. We could talk to you literally. I'm not trying to flatter you, but I could talk to you for hours about this stuff. But we've got a few minutes. What do you think they are then? What do you think these creatures are, Kyle and Montra? If you had to guess, if I said to you right now, tell me what they are, what would you say?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know. I really don't know. They're sentient creatures of some kind. Where they come from, I don't know what they are. I don't know. From what we gather, they have a lot of traits that are human-like. I don't know.
To me, it seems what's very odd about it is, when people talk about them and stuff, like some of the guys that first got into the Bigfoot field, some of the old timers that hunted for these things for years and stuff like that. They always thought that they were an ape, but the problem is with what the things that I've seen and what they've been able to do is they're highly intelligent. They have to be. They have to be highly intelligent. It's not just an ape walking around the forest. If it was just an ape walking around the forest, we'd have shot one by now. Shot many of them.
So
they are. It's puzzling because what they are, they're very intelligent creatures.
Yeah, they certainly seem very intelligent from your experience.
Yeah.
Have you ever, just want to come back to something that was near the start of the show, have you ever seen any of those Men in Black that you suggested? Have you ever seen any of them again since your childhood?
Never have ever again.
And did they look human?
They did, but like I said, they were very pale. They had no hair. They were really odd. And I don't know. I don't know. As a kid, why would you pay attention to that? I just know that when they came over, my grandmother make us go outside and play until they left. So.
And how old were you when you saw those?
Probably like 8 or 9 years old.
So not really tiny, 8 or 9. Interesting. That's very interesting, Carl. I think I'll have to explore more of that with you over a beer. I'm fascinated.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's it. And Montra, how's the Washington winter going? Bearing in mind you're a California girl, are you wrapping up a lot, or are you coping okay?
Well, it took me about 6 months to quit shivering when I first moved here, and Kyle be walking around in shorts and I'm wearing a parka, thinking, "Oh my God, how am I going to do this?" But I'm kind of starting to finally get a little bit more acclimated weather-wise, but I'm still in that state of, "Oh my God, it's so beautiful outside," when everybody's bundled up and they're like just trying to get from point A to point B without dying or sliding off the road, and I'm still like, "Oh my God, it's just so pretty." But I'm still like I'm a total snow geek right now.
Good for you. Well, we've run out of time. It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really loved chatting to both of you.
Well, thank you.
You've been wonderful guests. I hope we'll have an opportunity to talk to you again. And your area sounds fascinating. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll get my plane out tonight. No, I'm only joking. I will.
You're welcome to come on up anytime. So
hey, you got to come up. I really like to take you out and show you this stuff.
Come and do a live show.
I'm telling you, I could take you and show you some stuff that just blow your mind.
You and Mike, come on up. I mean, we'd love to have you, and we really appreciate you having us on the show too.
No, it's been our pleasure. I mean, I've been messaging Mike and backwards and forwards, and we've had a wonderful time. So thanks ever so much, and we'll speak to you soon. You enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Adam. Have a good night.
Night. Bye bye.
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 Ladies and gentlemen, that was Montra and Kyle. That was a fascinating show. There's so much to go on there. It's been our pleasure having you listening in to us. We'll speak to you next week. On behalf of Mike and I, thank you very much. Good night.